More here from More Art School. Welcome to this wet on wet painting demonstration. Today I thought we'd do a nice little tropical beach scene, bright blue sunny skies and little palm tree, little island, you know, like a little tropical getaway. It's a beautiful sunny day outside, and I guess that's inspired my desire, if you like, to want to find a nice little tropical getaway. So we're going to do a wet on wet painting demonstration in the style of Bob Ross and Bill Alexander. At More Art School we teach that style, but we obviously add our own flavour to it and our own subjects and things like that, not your typical Bob Ross sort of subjects. Now the colours that I'm going to use today, I've got phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, which we'll use mostly for the foliage. We've got some alizarin crimson, some yellow ochre, cadmium yellow, titanium white. Now because I'm in Australia, and for those of you who don't know me, I run More Art School. We teach both online art classes and also, you know, actual work classes, workshops and art classes. And I'm the only Australian certified Bill Alexander certified instructor. Problem is, in Australia we cannot get magic white, magic clear, or Bob Ross's version of it, liquid white and liquid clear, because of the importing laws or some silly nonsense. So what do you do in that case if you want to paint in this style and you can't get magic white and so on? Well, what we've found through experimentation is that whilst it's advantageous to have magic white or liquid white, you can get away with not having it, because all magic white really is white, you know, titanium white paint thinned down with a mix. Now, not 100% sure what the formula is, but it's definitely, you know, turpentine thinner and, you know, linseed oil or something along those lines. Probably burnt linseed oil, which makes it dry faster. So what I found in our classes is we can actually get away with just using thinner and white paint, right? And apply that to the canvas is all we really need to do. So that's how I'm going to start out. I've got my little 1-inch Alexander brush here. I'm just going to soften it up a little bit. And my bucket, my cleaning bucket, where I clean out my brushes, it gets a little bit dirty because I'm painting all the time, being a full-time artist. So it's a little bit on the grey side. So, you know, technically what I should be doing is getting it nice and clean and using a very clean thinner. But in reality, it never seems to work out that way, right? So all I'm doing is just pulling the brush with the thinner in it, and you can see it's a little bit dirty there, right? Which I don't mind that. It's going to come up dirty on the canvas and you'll actually get to see what I'm doing. So it's probably an advantage for the purpose of this video. I'm just, you know, applying that thinner into the white paint. Now, you can make up your own version of magic clear or liquid clear, depending on whether you follow Ross or Alexander. Make up your own version of that with just burnt linseed oil and thinner. But I've found that just a bit of thinner into your white paint can often just be all you need, really. Okay, so you can see it's getting nice and sloppy on there now. Just got to be careful you don't get it all up and down the walls, as I have a tendency to do. And we just start at the top of our canvas here, and we just use X mark. As you can see, it's quite wet. The canvas that I'm using is 16 by 20 stretch canvas, but what I do is I buy it on a roll, and you can see it's quite got a lot of give in it. I buy it on a roll and I just pop it on some stretcher bars with a couple of staples, so it's not fully stretched on the canvas. But by buying your canvas on a roll, you save a lot of money. And then if you do a painting that you're really happy with and you want to get it framed and so on, then you can get it stretched properly, you know, by just tightening it right up. Now I'm just using these X strokes just to get this, my version of magic white onto the canvas here where we're going to have the sky. Like so. It is a little bit on the wet side, so I'll take some paper towel in a moment and I'll just pull out a bit of it where I think it's a bit wet. Now you can see that because my thinner bucket is a little bit dirty, you can see it's coming out on the canvas there, which I think is probably an advantage for you watching this video. Now you'll probably notice in all the Bob Ross and Bill Alexander videos, they use their 2.5-inch brush to do this. I'm using the 1-inch brush. And the reason is, when I use a 2.5-inch brush, because it can contain a lot of the thinner, I tend to spray it up the walls and everything. So for the purpose of, you know, good harmonious relationships at home, I'm using the 1-inch brush, which holds less and therefore does less damage if you're being a bit reckless. Okay, so we just get it onto the canvas there. It's pretty simple to do this step. I think people worry too much about the magic white side of it. It's not that big a deal as probably what people have been led to believe. I know it certainly can help in the wet on wet technique, you know, for beginners and so on. It's, you know, it's not 100% necessary. You know, millions of painters around the world have done paintings for centuries without using magic white and liquid white. Okay. Now, obviously, it's advantageous for the Bob Ross, Bill Alexander method. Okay, so it's a little bit sloppy in parts there. I'm just going to take a little bit of paper towel, particularly up the top here. It's quite wet. Take a bit of paper towel, and all I'm going to do is just knock that back a little bit in areas that I can see where it's a bit wet. Bit down the bottom there. Okay, and I think that's going to be pretty good. Again, I think people fussed a little bit too much about getting the magic white onto the canvas perfectly, and really you don't need to get it perfect, just as long as you get a nice even coating. It's not too wet. If it's too wet, you can run into problems, and you know that you get the entire canvas covered if you need it to be the entire canvas covered. Otherwise, just the areas you're going to work in, like the sky. Okay, what we're going to do now is going to work on our sky area. Going to have a nice big blue sky. Might put a couple of islands in there, and then a nice embankment here of a couple of palm trees and so on. So I'm going to use our phthalo blue and my 1-inch brush, and I'm just going to, because the phthalo blue can be quite strong, just going to take a little bit of it there and pop it out onto the palette here, and just work it into my brush. Now, I think it's always better with a colour like phthalo blue, a staining colour, always better to sneak up on it than it is to go over the top with too much. So you can see how I'm just loading it into the brush there, just crossing the brush over, get some paint there, and we'll start in the top here and go to 2 corners. We want the 2 corners to be the darkest part of the sky. We want the angle it in here towards the center of interest, and then just work across using these X marks. Okay. Now you do 1 band, then you stop, you take your brush off. You don't reload the brush at this stage. You come down to the next band and you work on the next band. And because you're going to have less paint now on the brush, it's going to start to thin out, and it's going to start to mix with the white that's already on there. Okay, so I've done another band through there, come down again. And as you come down towards the horizon mark, you want to be starting to just use less pressure. I'm going to bring the horizon down to about 2/3 of the way down. Okay, so I'm getting close to that now. I want to use less pressure with the brush than what I was using. So just nice and gentle, just getting some paint on. You notice there's lots of big pieces that are missing there of the white. We're going to thin that or blend that right out in just a moment. So nice and gentle pressure now, because what we want is that nice gradient from dark down to light towards the horizon there. And I probably don't need to do any more there. I think we're over that 2/3 mark. Take our 2.5-inch brush. Now, I tend to focus most of our work with our students in our classes on just using this as a blending brush. Okay, the way you hold it is you have your 4 fingers on the back there, thumb on the front, and we're going to use the X motion again, and just work our way across the top, blending using that X stroke, then go to the next band, the next band, the next band, down to the horizon. Now, what you don't want to do is go back up, okay? Because we don't want to pick up the lighter, well actually, we don't want to get the dark into the light and the light into the dark, if that makes sense. Otherwise the whole thing will just balance back out into one flat colour. So using this brush, we're just going to apply a little bit of pressure now, just to ensure that we get that blending. Okay, you can see that's blending in quite nicely there. That corner a bit darker there, so blend that in a bit more. Okay, now we might have to do this a couple of times to get our blending in just right. Coming across again. Now it feels a little bit different from a fully stretched canvas because it is giving a little bit more, and you might be noticing that. It doesn't really matter though, and you save yourself a whole lot of money doing it this way, stretching your own canvases. And it really doesn't bother me, you know, the fact that it does have a bit of give in it. Okay, now there's a few spots in there that are a bit patchy, we'll come back in and we'll fix those shortly. Okay, now just stepping back and looking at that, it's obvious that we don't have enough paint on the canvas. So probably because I was using the 1-inch brush, I'm going to go back in now. I'm going to take the big brush and I'm just going to get some more of that phthalo blue, like so. So I want to demonstrate this to you so that you can see what do you do if it doesn't quite turn out, which is, you know, a common example. What happens in our art classes is they follow the instructions, but maybe don't quite use enough paint when they put the blue on. They end up with this really patchy sort of example. Now, one of the things that I teach them to do is to, wherever there's, you know, excessive gaps, turn those into clouds. Very easy to fix that, right? But if it's a bit too patchy like mine is here, then I'll just go back with a bigger brush and I'll just start again. Okay, in the X's in the corner, and we'll just work in with a bit more paint this time. Now, because I'm filming here and I'm under bright lights and it's quite a warm day, the paint is drying out a lot quicker than it normally would. Okay, just having to rework into a few spots there. And I think this is a really good demonstration because often you'll see Bob Ross and Bill Alexander and others doing this and they get a perfect sky straight up. What do you do if you don't get a perfect sky straight up? Well, everything can be fixed and worked on, as you're seeing right now. I don't always get a perfect sky, but the key is not to panic and to know what to do to fix it. Okay, so I'm just using just a little bit more paint, and I also grab just a touch of white because I'm lower down here now. Okay, just working into that center part there. Okay, now in the middle there I'm going to put a bit of an island, so I don't mind if it's a little bit thin there. However, that's probably just a bit too thin for me. Okay, just reassessing, and I will just add, I'll just go through this process again because I do want to get a nice bright sky, and want to get it right, so no point moving on until we get it just the way we want it to be. Okay, so I've gone a little bit more thinner in it this time because it's drying out very fast. It's actually a warmer day here than well, I thought. It's getting out to the 30s out there. Okay. You can see that paint's going on a bit better now. So I think what happened is that thinner that I first put on there dried out a lot quicker than I'd anticipated. Talking too much. Now, I think I've gone too dark now on the horizon area. So what do you do in that case? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take just a little bit of the titanium white on there. Just a little. And just work that in towards the bottom here so I do get a nice lightened off horizon. Okay. Dry my brush out. Now I'm just standing back and having a look at it, and I think when I blend in this bottom part that I've just added, that we'll get a nice transition. just work it in. Sometimes you have to work a little bit harder to get the paint to settle in and blend the way you want it to. I think when you actually start to learn this method of painting, and it gives you a newfound respect for Bob Ross and Bill Alexander, able to achieve the full painting the way they do in just 24 minutes. Usually takes me about an hour or so to get the same sort of effect. So I think we're getting close with this sky now. It's got a nice sort of transition from dark down to light on the horizon, which was what I was looking for, and it was lacking that before, which is why I went back in with some white. I think the lesson for this is, if you are painting skies and it doesn't work out the way you see Bob Ross or Bill Alexander doing it, as mine didn't, there can be all sorts of reasons for that, right? And often it's just learning the technique enough to know how much pressure to apply, how much paint you need, etc. But the important thing is knowing how to correct it to get that nice transition and get that nice blend effect of your sky. So hopefully that's shown you what to do if you do run into trouble. Let's move on and have a look at the clouds. Okay, we're going to look at doing some clouds now. Now I've got my 1-inch brush and I haven't cleaned it in the thinner. What I have done is just pull it in some paper towel just to get most of the paint out. I want to leave a little bit of the paint in there for doing our clouds, because it'll mix with the titanium white and it's going to create a nice effect. So I'm just going to take some titanium white. I'll leave that there. Just going to dip my brush into titanium white here, and we're just going to go for some really basic fluffy white clouds. So you can see there that I've got a nice big chunk of white on the brush, probably a little bit too much. I'll just dab some of that off, and if I'm going to do an island in here, and I'm going to do a beach embankment with a palm tree, I think, palm tree here, island, we really need to focus our bigger cloud over on this side here. Now, in our art workshops and classes that we run, and also of our online art classes, the technique that I teach people when they're first starting out to paint clouds is to think about being a cloud, right? Don't try so hard to paint a cloud, but to pick a spot and then just go and make a nice fluffy shape. Okay, that's the key. If you overthink it and you try too hard to paint a cloud, it never seems to work out. So what I'll do is I'll pick a spot here and I'll work my way across, up and around, and don't overwork it. Okay, it's really important. I can't stress that enough. So sometimes it's best to close your eyes and just use a little bit of reckless abandonment. And so, you just want to let the brush do most of the work and just swirl it around like so. And clouds are usually flatten off at the bottom. Okay, like so. And are usually nice and light and fluffy up the top. Okay, so that's the way I paint clouds and teach people to paint clouds. Just use that swirling motion and to not try so hard to paint a cloud. It never seems to work out if you're trying to overpaint the clouds so much. As you come down towards the horizon, the clouds will start to they'll start to get smaller because they're going to be further away in the distance. So we might do a couple of little clouds over here. Okay, like so. And this is just a beginner's approach. Obviously, as you advance, we'll use more advanced sort of techniques to paint the clouds. But starting out as a beginner, what you want is simple techniques that are going to help you get a result that you're happy with, so that you feel encouraged to keep painting. I think that's the key. Now, what you can do is take your 2.5-inch brush, give that a clean, and just using just the edges here, just get in there and just work into these clouds just a little bit, flick up those edges there. What we're doing is just softening them off because the clouds are really background to the subject. We don't want them dominating. So if they're too strong, they will tend to dominate. But if we flick them out, just soften them in a little bit. Okay, like so. it just gives a nice sort of soft effect. And then taking the big brush, what you want to do is just very gently just brush through them a little bit. I tend not to go up to the top of them too much when I'm doing this. Just soften out the bottom of them. Flicking out the top. And it creates sort of an atmosphere of you know, a nice light breezy day. When we put that palm tree up there, we'll put a couple of the leaves and branches coming over the top here. It'll push those clouds even further back into the distance. Okay. So they're just light wispy clouds. They're not meant to be stormy clouds or anything like that. Remember, this is a tropical beach scene that we're doing.